Well, apparently the law or the government is getting involved with people who are being discriminatory or I don't know if using their discretion in who they do business with.
Sure.
Well, the law or the government is getting involved with saying you can't use good discretion now.
Right.
If you don't rent to criminals, you're a racist. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. You don't rent to criminals? Like with a criminal record? Or
Correct.
What? Okay.
And there's a logic and a reason behind this.
Okay, I can't wait to hear this.
And this will just drive you crazy.
Well, first of all, why do you care if somebody calls you a racist? That's the part I still never understand. Why does anybody care?
I don't know. Maybe they don't want their feelings hurt or something.
That's the part I never understand. I get called a racist all the fucking time for arguing with these fucking dumbass liberals on fucking Facebook.
Right.
Whenever I don't cave into their points, it's just because you're a fucking racist.
Yeah.
You're okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Thanks. I give a fuck what you think.
All right. Well, here's the crux of this.
All right, let's hear this.
You're a private landlord renting apartments in a building you bought with your savings from years of hard work and modest living.
Right.
So basically, you took your money that you earned and you invested it to make more money.
Okay.
You take pride in maintaining your property. You keep it clean, comfortable, and attractive.
Okay.
You charge a fair rent and treat your tenants with the courtesy and the respect that they deserve. Your tenants, in turn, appreciate the care that you put into your building.
All right.
But they trust you to screen prospective tenants wisely. Here's where the problem is.
Okay.
You're screening people, accepting only residents who won't jeopardize the building's safe and neighborly character.
And that's bad.
That apparently is a bad thing.
Doesn't every job you ever go to do that?
You would think so, yes.
I mean, isn't that like a big deal? Is that when you file for a job, that part of the application is, have you had a felony?
Or they do a background check.
Yeah, or both. But I know every job I've ever applied to, one of the questions on the job application was, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
Sure.
You're not allowed to do that anymore, or is that just for renting homes?
That apparently has something to do with the Fair Rental Agreement or Fair Housing Act.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that.
That's why you only consider applications from individuals who are employed or are in school, whose credit scores are strong, and who have no criminal record.
You would think.
Well, again, it's by doing that, what you're doing is you're eliminating people.
Right, sure.
And apparently we're not allowed to eliminate anybody anymore.
Sounds good to me because my credit score is shit.
Mm-hmm.
I could go get a new place. I like it.
Right. Most Americans would look at you and likely see a prudent, level-headed property owner.
Okay, I would.
Not the Obama administration.
Of course not.
The Department of Housing and Urban Development warned last week that the landlords who refuse to rent to anyone with a criminal record are in violation of the Fair Housing Act and can be prosecuted and fined for, drumroll please, racial discrimination.
Oh, fuck you, Obama, you fucking twat. In both of them. Two twats.
In a 10-page guidance issued on April 4th, the federal agency announced that any landlord with a blanket policy of not renting to people with a criminal conviction is effectively discriminating on the basis of race or national origin.
That is bullshit. I would take that right to the court.
Because of widespread racial and ethnic disparities in the U.S. criminal justice system, HUD's new guidelines read, criminal history-based restrictions on access to housing are likely disproportionately to the burden of African Americans and Hispanics.
That is fucking bullshit. Are you fucking kidding me?
So what they're basically saying is that we know that the blacks and Hispanics commit most of the crimes.
Yeah.
So because you're eliminating criminals, you're arbitrarily eliminating African Americans and Hispanics.
You've got to be kidding me.
I'm not kidding you.
This fucking cocksucker has got to get out of office.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. This guy, is there anything that this guy has not fucked up?
Well,
is there anything?
He's a community organizer.
But
this is what these people do.
I fucking, I don't want to say what I'm thinking because I don't need to fucking knock at my door.
Sure. Therefore, such a practice would violate the Fair Housing Act.
Fuck that. I would be out. I would have to burn my place to the ground first.
Hail and kill caller, you're on the air.
You know, these people pay out on people with religious beliefs and all this stuff, or whatever faith you have. But it's becoming a world where we live in where there's no consequence for action. You know, if you've got a criminal history and you've done something wrong, especially if you've done it recently, it might be different if you did it 10 years ago or something. But you know, if people not want to face consequences for their actions anymore, this place is fucked.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to face consequences for their actions. Nobody says, man, you know what, if I get caught, I sure hope I go to jail for 10 years. Nobody wants to get caught. Well, the problem, Tim, is that our government, at least here in the States, I can't speak for other countries, but at least here in the state, our current occupant of the White House wants to somehow level the playing field. So if you're a scumbag, you should have as much rights, if not more, than somebody who's lived a clean lifestyle and has done the responsible thing to make it fair.
Yeah. Look, if it's like having someone that's a drug addict. Like where we live, there's a lot of really weird people around us, right? And they just have no respect for anything, and you know, just go ballistic, and then they wonder why they get in trouble and they get kicked out, you know, and it's just life's fucked. Hail and kill.
Comment?
I just waiting for it to end so we can get back to the story.
Right. The administration argument is twofold. First, because blacks and Hispanic commit crimes and go to prison at a much higher rate than whites, a policy of automatically rejecting applicants with a criminal past will have a disparate impact on different racial groups.
All right, so you penalize the guy that didn't cause a problem for the guy that did.
More or less, yes.
That seems fair.
Mm-hmm. And second, not all convictions are alike, and not everyone with a prior criminal record would be a risky tenant.
Yeah, says the guy that's not fucking responsible for the fucking his money being on the table.
Sure.
I don't see these guys. Yeah, where's
your risk factor?
And I'm going to say something that sounds completely against what I always stand for. Where is the government's fucking subsidizing for making this happen, for making it so that you have to take less desirable people into your place?
Yeah, well, where's the insurance that if something gets fucked up or somebody gets harmed or damaged or whatever, that they're going to somehow make them whole?
Yeah, if somebody gets, let's just say that they fucking bring in some fucking asshole and he rapes somebody in the apartment. The apartment building is definitely going to get sued.
Mm-hmm.
The apartment ownership. And they don't have they have no recourse.
Yeah, well, where's their skin in the game?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. The government is saying, well, you're liable, but you can't choose who you have there. Fuck you.
Right. Both points are indisputably true. It isn't hard to find examples of former convicts who long ago learned their lesson and went straight, yet find it difficult to secure housing because the background checks always flag their old offenses. HUD Secretary Julian Castro laments that too many landlords use the fact of conviction, any conviction, regardless of what it was or how long ago it was, to turn away prospective tenants, thwarting those who are only looking for a fair chance to be productive members of society.
That's not your problem as a property owner. You don't. This has been my problem since fucking day one of this cocksucker with the fucking healthcare, for God's sakes. As an owner of a property, of a propriety, of a business, of whatever, it's not your fucking problem to take care of the other people.
It isn't.
If you own a business, what do you care how these fucking people's health is? You care that they show up for their 8 hours and do their fucking job. If they go home from that and they're coughing up blood and they're sick, that's tough shit. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's not your fucking problem. Same with this. People that have committed crimes are not getting a fair shake. Well, that's their fucking problem. That's not the problem of the guy that hasn't committed a crime. Why should he put his neck on the line for this shit? It's fucking stupid.
I agree. Well, again, this is part of that whole attitude of wealth redistribution. It's, well, you've been successful and you've been motivated and you've, gone out there and achieved. You need to give some of your achievement and your accomplishment to the people who haven't achieved.
No, fuck them. Fuck them. I love the spirit of capitalism. I work my fucking balls off, and I should achieve. And you know what? If I do, I shouldn't give it to a motherfucking person. Nobody should get any part of it except me. Because I do it. When I put this book out here in a month or whatever, I don't feel like I owe anybody dick. Now, one fucking nickel do I owe anybody for it. I wrote it. I did it myself. I fucking published it. I fucking got the artwork done. So fuck you. I'm not going to fucking give it to some other fucking guy that's a homeless douchebag that could be out working. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Let him die. Hate to be that kind of bold, but that's the way I feel.
Sure.
If you're healthy enough to be productive and you're not, die. Just get out of the fucking way. Nobody needs to fucking coddle you and say, oh, well, you could do better. You're just not getting the right opportunity. Fuck you. I was goddamn dead on a table. Dead on a fucking table. And I came back to own multiple businesses. So if a dumbass like me can do it, anybody can do it. Anybody that is physically capable can fucking take care of themselves. They don't need to be coddled by the fucking cocksucker that fucking runs this fucking place. Fucking dickhead fuck.
Is it reasonable to call attention to the challenges that can shadow people with a criminal record for years? Perfectly. And if HUD were simply arguing property owners not to paint with a too broad of a brush, and to remember that many former prisoners are peaceful, law-abiding citizens and may make admirable tenants, its guidance would be objectionable. But the leap made by the government condemning any landlord with the across-the-board policy of not renting to former criminals as, in effect, a racist is outrageous.
So is the theory here that because of this, people are going to get rid of their property and the government will buy it up? And then the government's going to start controlling housing?
It's hard to say.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. The Fair Housing Act makes it illegal to discriminate in the sale or renting of housing because of race, color, religion, sex, familial status, or national origin. Felons and former prisoners, inmates are not a protected class under the law. Having a criminal record is not a proxy for being racial or ethnic minority, and a disparate impact theory does not make it okay to penalize landlords who are concerned about the safety of their property and the security of their tenants. Freedom of association is a fundamental human right, and the vitality of our economic life depends on it. A landlord who chooses not to do business with anyone who has a criminal record may not always end up making the wisest of choices. But why should any person or entity except the landlord be entitled to make that choice? To be sure, a blanket rule against renting to ex-cons may exclude some potentially wonderful tenants that other property owners less inflexible or more savvy is free to snap up. Absent of any evidence of impermissible racial animus, however, the government has no excuse to brand the landlord as de facto bigot or prosecute him or her for violating civil rights laws.
Yeah. So this is going to end up in a courtroom.
Yeah. So basically what they're saying is, well, the majority of criminals are black. Mm-hmm. And if you say I'm not renting to a criminal, you're more or less saying I'm not renting to a black person. Well, that's what this boils down to.
But if somebody legitimate, I mean, what would happen? Okay, let's say that there's they have a black tenant, black family.
Sure.
Decent, normal people making $80,000 a year, whatever. Doing their life, living their life. Got a kid or two. Normal people. If they have one, can they then discriminate against fucking criminals?
Well, again, this all
that they have one.
Well, but see, that goes back to that whole old argument of I'm not a racist because I have a black friend.
I understand that, but I'm talking about for the legality of it. You can't say that I'm discriminating against black folks if there's black folks living here.
True.
So really what you got to do is give the first apartment away to a legitimate family so that you can avoid all these fucking pieces of shit.
Mm-hmm.
What a world we're living in.
I know. HUD's new guideline warns landlords not to rely on bald assertions based on generalizations about the risk of renting to people with criminal records. But human beings rely on generalizations all the time, especially when trying to predict the behavior of others. Mm-hmm. And see, there you go. There's the word I always use, behavior.
Are there any crimes that can just out and out say you don't have to house them?
I don't think so.
So if you have tenants that are kids, you might still have to take a pedophile. What we're saying?
I'm thinking that it just says that criminals.
Yeah, they're not. So if you have college girls, you still have to take a rapist.
I would imagine if that's what that's saying.
Fuck that.
In general, a potential tenant's criminal record is a cause for concern. Recidivism rates in the United States are sky high. Former lawbreakers are not infrequently future lawbreakers. More than 40% of the offenders return to prison within 3 years of their release. A property owner with a blanket no convicts rule is not being irrational, only cautious. And cautious, even in an abundance of cautious, is not a race crime.
Well, they're only going back because they're black.
Right. By all means, let HUD throw the book at the landlord who rejects only black and Hispanic applicants. Let it crack down on property owners who waive a no criminal record policy when the prospective tenant is white. But when a reasonable criterion is applied in a reasonable manner, the Fed's only task should be to stay out of the way, not to use fair housing laws as a pretext for unfairly prosecuting landlords.
All right.
So basically what they're saying is if you're going to, be not discriminatory, what's the word? Use...
Discrimination? What?
No, not discrimination. You have to do it for everybody. You have to be consistent, kind of like that whole story that I just read about the tire shop guy.
Yeah.
That you can't make the exception to the rule for one person and not the other.
So can you say anybody with a felony cannot?
Yeah, you can't rent. What they're saying is if you rent to a criminal and they're white, but then you won't rent to a former criminal that's black, then you got a problem.
Well, that makes sense. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But my God, I mean, I don't think it's such a big stretch to say, yeah, I own, a mill two in this apartment complex. I'm not going to fucking have people with felonies living here.
Sure.
Or unemployed people.
Right.
Should be able to say you have to have 3 years of work, consistent straight work that we can check and no felonies.
Sure.
I don't see where that's crazy.
Well, the thing is that the new HUD rules opens up the door for prosecution of tenants, for landlords who aren't careful in how they rent or who they rent to.
Right. So you got to run a background check.
Yeah,
now.
you have to be consistent for everybody.
You got to spend that first $300 on the background check.
Mm-hmm.